Hector, if I could start with you, I'd like to lead in with, I guess, a little bit of your career. I mean, you're a fantastic performer, and I know you've had a tremendous number of great roles. In particularly, my children always love the Princess Diaries, and how can you forget Pretty Woman? But what was your favorite role, or your favorite roles and actors to work with?
Well, on the screen, you just mentioned two of them. Young Doctors in Love was Gary Marshall's first movie. I love that. There were quite a few. It's difficult to choose favorite roles since I've done different characters. On stage, there are, I suppose, Steam Bath, Bruce J. Friedman, 1970. I don't think your kids saw that one. And a lot of stuff on stage during the 60s and 70s. I've kept busy, and I've been very, very fortunate. I'm very grateful.
Well, you're really an icon with other performers and with fledgling directors like myself. And I know you've played a lot of roles, but you've also played a fairly tough role as a caregiver for some of your relatives with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I certainly was an active observer, at least. My father was the primary caregiver in the late 60s and early 70s when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia. Actually, she was diagnosed with pre-senile dementia. They didn't even call it Alzheimer's then.
That's right.
There wasn't even a name for it then. And it was a pretty dark time. My father took the brunt of it. He was the primary caregiver. He was confused by it all. He didn't know what it was. He thought it was his fault. He had no information. There was no medical treatment. There was no educational material. In other words, he had no resources. And he didn't have a community of caregivers for support. So it was, it devastated the whole family. And now, of course, it's a different time, and folks have an opportunity. They have a chance to not be in the dark now. And to know that things don't have to be as confusing. The disease may be as devastating, but at least you know what you're facing, and you know that it's not your fault.
Right.
And I know, Hector, that you've witnessed some of those challenges firsthand. How has that affected you and your life?
Well, it's made me a little more patient. It's made me realize that knowledge is power. The worst thing. Our two great enemies always have been, since the beginning of time, are ignorance and fear. And suffering from that is a terrible thing. That's a disease in itself. Well, we suffer from that in a variety of ways, of course.
Absolutely.
This is something that's made me cognizant of being informed. That's the first line of defense.
What would you recommend personally for anyone who's suffering from Alzheimer's? What would you suggest from your heart to do?
Well, for those that are suffering from Alzheimer's, if they're fortunate enough to have a very good caring group of caregivers, that's the main thing. And make sure that they're informed. So as the doctor said, make sure you try to diagnose as soon as possible so you can make plans for the future, as tenuous as that future might be. You don't want to be surprised at the last minute and say, oh my goodness, Aunt Shirley has Alzheimer's, what are we going to do? She has 6 months to live. No, you want to make those plans way before. Right. And while you're still cognizant, while you're still functioning, you yourself, as the patient, I suppose can be part of that, of planning for your future, so you don't have to be left out of the loop.
Okay, Hector, thanks so very much for joining us today and sharing your time with us. What can we see next from you? I know you have Love in the Time of Cholera coming up soon. Yes,
Love in the Time of Cholera was out, as a matter of fact, and I'm currently doing Monk with Tony Shalhoub in the 7th season. Very happy to be working on that. I start shooting this week, as a matter of fact. The 7th season will premiere July 18th. And I'm also co-producing a movie with a very interesting lady as executive producer.
Well, we look forward to that. And once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.